Hello, and welcome to the latest installment of our Basecamp Digital series, the MobilServ approach to prescriptive maintenance and new technology for our trusty toolboxes. Accelerate automation while boosting your scalability, security, and performance. Thank you for joining us here today. We'd like to recognize our sponsors of Basecamp Digital, Inductive Automation, our platinum sponsor, alongside Everactive, Hulft, Litmus, Nikola Labs, and Opto22. You can find some handouts on the left side of your screen there. In the handout section, there are some white papers and some case studies and some reports that are germane to the topic we're talking about today. At the bottom, you'll find a list of video interviews with representatives from our sponsor companies. Don't click on those video interviews until we're done with the session because it will kick you out of the webinar, and we don't want to have that. We have a lot to get to. We have some very sharp presenters. A little bit of housekeeping first off. My name is Chris McNamara, Editor-in-Chief with Smart Industry. Thanks for joining us. The webinar has officially started. If you can't hear me speaking, please check to make sure your computer mute button is turned to off. You can log off and log back in if you're having problems, and if you still can't hear me, please contact tech support by typing your message in the questions and answers box on your screen. In that vein, we'd love today to be an active conversation with our presenters. We'd love this to be a dialogue, so please do submit your questions for Adam and Jason and Benson. We'll jump in and pose those questions to the presenters as they come in if they're appropriate for the topic. Otherwise, we'll address your questions at the Q&A section at the tail end of today's presentation. Likewise, if you're joining us on demand, welcome. You can still submit questions for our presenters, and we will get answers for you via email. So let's get into the presenters here. We have Adam McMurtry with ExxonMobil. We have Jason Hamlin with InserLogic, and we have Benson Hoagland with Opto22. I think Adam is going to kick things off for us. Adam, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Chris.
Great. Let's jump into the human-led approach to unlocking the power of Industry 4.0.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. This is Adam McMurtry, CMRP. CMRP stands for Certified Maintenance and Reliability Professional, though as one colleague calls it, it should stand for Constantly Making Reliability a Priority. The kids, on the other hand, they would say it should stand for Cookie Monster's Retribution Plan. I can confirm the first two are definitely true. No comment on the third. So in order for this presentation to change the future of your company, it needs to have three things: a profound insight, an expert teacher presenting the insight, and an audience ready to learn. Today, we'll share with you two insights that completely change the way we are approaching Industry 4.0. And we will unlock those gems for you too. We pack those gems under the title of Human-Led Approach, but we'll unpack those later for you. Regarding the teacher, luckily, I'm representing one of the best A-teams we've ever assembled, who journeyed together to discover for ourselves how to employ the great power of these technologies. We assembled engineers and inventors from across our organization. We recruited entrepreneurs and technology experts. We consulted our own complex operations. We added a user experience pro and linked up with a startup. So what I'll share today represents our collective work. So we hope you're excited to learn today. Everything that we do is focused on our customers' ambitions. Right now, you may feel like meeting your 2020 goals is a lot like playing Marco Polo. You know exactly what you need to do, but it feels like you're blindfolded. There's uncertainty about the future, and uncertainty about how to use technology to help. Today, we'll rip the blindfold off. We'll share with you real-world examples and take your questions. In anticipation of this presentation, we wanted to further understand what our customers' Marco Polo pools might look like. So we researched corporate priorities, their executives' compensation plan, and stated competitive advantages. Stars here represent the most common findings among the companies researched. What stands out to you? It's actually really important for our customers to distinguish themselves from their competition by getting smarter with technology. They want to find the right market, the right price and promotion to become the money-making machines that they desire to be. And they also want to eliminate waste, for example, by increasing recycled content. For executives, they want to secure short and long-term cash flow. And regarding corporate priorities, they want to do something world-class and then replicate that across the organization. So if we're going to pull the blindfold off of Marco Polo today, then we have to be able to help do more with less. Less money, fewer people, less time, less space for inventory. We also have to help eliminate waste and improve the environment. Additionally, it needs to reduce costs in the specific way that you measure that, in dollars per ton, dollars per unit, or dollars per foot. And interestingly, as we do these three things, it'll give us something world-class that you'll be able to replicate across the organization. In turn, that will help you make money now and in the future, and can lead to collaboration across functions. But priorities and compensation cut in both directions, so we need to understand more about what's missing here. Shockingly, we found that not focusing on the bottom line will actually help you improve the bottom line better and for a longer period of time. But what could possibly be a more important focus than the bottom line? Humans, leading with a human-centered strategy. So to unpack that, let's start with defining Industry 4.0 and discussing its limitations. Industry 4.0 is the next step in our age of industrialization. It's connecting the electrified brains of equipment to each other. It's using information from sensors to make more informed decisions, like motion sensors, vibration sensors, accelerometers, noise and position sensors, and many others. It's also introducing a new way for manufacturing, including robotics and 3D printing or additive manufacturing, and includes wearables technology. These technologies are great, but they're not enough. The data actually needs to be refined and understood and then utilized. Even then, it will miss the mark eventually. So even if you partner with a big company like IBM to gather more data, data is not a silver bullet to unlocking the potential within Industry 4.0. A human-centered approach, however, will unlock that potential. Why is that? Because there's a weakness in focusing solely on data, and because the people within the organization are disconnected, and the data that you actually gather needs a reference point, which most companies haven't established. So let's dig into that first one. Many companies are piling into the trend. They want to help. They've got great intentions, but they each offer an independent solution. When that technology is employed, achieving those benefits will unfortunately be narrowed to their specific application. Further, even if they have open APIs, many of these solutions don't sync or collaborate in an open ecosystem. We actually hoped that we would have found a common platform out there, but there's a lack of this open architecture as a whole. So even when the systems can integrate, they don't do it easily or in a way that the metrics are unified. Plain and simple, this can lead to an overabundance of data, not because you're just gathering data, but because it's hard to understand what's important in the data. Lastly, solutions that thrive independently will leave operations with separate programs to manage and logins to work with. So let's look at a specific example. Consider vibration analysis sensors. This is a great addition to any oil analysis program that you have, and in addition to a condition-based monitoring program that you may have. These use methods for measurement called RMS, which is a root mean squared amplitude method. And it's actually based in ISO, the International Organization for Standardization, but it actually lacks a full signature analysis. A local company here actually installed 3G-enabled vibration analysis on some remote conveyor gearboxes, and they were measuring noise and vibration. They're excited. They received a lot of new data, but it wasn't linked to anything, and therefore it couldn't explain what was happening or why. So it ended up basically being useless. Just putting a sensor on something without understanding its actual failure mode wouldn't be effective. And even if there was an open architecture or platform that every technology could plug into, and they unified the measurement methods and metrics in that data collection, you'll actually still fall short of the true potential offered through this fourth industrial revolution. It's almost like hoarding data. Think of filling that swimming pool up with hand sanitizer instead of water. Initially, it seems like a great idea because that's a scarce resource. But then in this application, it actually has no utility. So even though your data is clean, it still won't provide you with a refreshing experience. With that backdrop of the shortcomings on focusing on data alone, how is a human-led approach going to unleash all this power I keep hearing about that exists in the data? To frame this up, let me pose a question. We're about halfway through the presentation, so I want to pause and take a poll and ask this question. How many of your employees know and feel how much their work contributes to the bottom line? Think about this. How much does your daily work contribute to the company's annual or long-term goals? Is it clear? Is it clear for your colleagues?
Adam, while
Let's take a moment.
While the audience is responding here, I'll just chime in that throughout all these Basecamp digital presentations, that message has been echoed time and time again is the importance of the human factor in all this. The technology and the tools are wonderful, but you need the buy-in from the people who are implementing and monitoring these things to really make these efforts work.
Yeah, you need their buy-in, and you'll actually see there's one little gem that I would add to that that's different enough that it actually is like yeast in the dough. It'll cause the entire organization to rise.
Mm-hmm. Cool analogy. All right, let's look at the data here.
So it looks like a majority, so there's a distribution curve here. So it looks like 3/4. Imagine that was your organization. I know there's varying responses here. 1 out of 5 would say that 10% of me and my colleagues really understand how our daily work contributes to the annual goals. Less than that is 1 out of 4. A majority say 3/4 of the organization actually understand and have a clear sense and feeling of that contribution. And then 30% of the respondents just simply don't know. So do these results surprise you? And if that was your organization, let's say the majority here, which is 3/4 of the organization, understands how much their daily work contributes to the bottom line, would you be happy with that? Some other thought-provoking questions here in a similar vein. Here's them to see. I believe those are visible now.
Consider for a moment if a large percentage of your employees felt that they had no contribution to the bottom line. Yeah, that's troubling.
Right. Exactly. Now consider some of these as well. Can you quantify the impact that each of your work tasks has on the company when completed? Similarly, can you quantify the impact that each of your work tasks has on the company when left incomplete? How effective do the following teams collaborate at your organization? Maintenance, production, procurement, and human resources. How much information should you retain from an employee after she or he retires? And how much is actually retained? Here's what we found in our interviews across North America. Both employers and employees feel a grand amount of pain when players are disconnected. The employers feel pain years after a knowledgeable and experienced worker leaves because some events happen only occasionally, and with aged equipment, it may happen only every 15 years or 20 years. So after he or she retires, who knew how to handle this situation, it may take 5 or 10 years for you to realize that you don't have the information you need to solve this particular problem in the most efficient or effective way. Employees feel the pain of not understanding how her or his work contributes to the overarching goal. Both feel frustrated when collaboration breaks down across the functions and silos are built instead. A backbone of a company is setting and enforcing behaviors to achieve a clearly defined goal. How does that go when the players are disconnected emotionally from achieving that goal? On the other side of the coin, what is the morale when every employee feels heard for his or her voice and vision? What does it feel like for you when you are heard, when your vision is put into play? Industry 4.0 is meant to help connect us to data. But the irony is that the effective method, which seems counterintuitive, is to connect people to people, not to data. To break down silos and to create a culture and system that measures each person's contribution to the overarching goals through his or her work. But we still wouldn't be complete if we left it just there either. All the data actually needs a reference point, otherwise it's useless. What is that reference point? The reference point should be the plant's total capacity. The total capacity is determined through a defined process, what they call an FMEA, or Failure Mode and Effects Analysis, which our MobilServ field engineers help complete for customers, since they can sometimes take an operation 6 to 12 months to complete on their own. A local field engineer first underpins the study with a clear understanding of the overarching company goals. They look at OEM manuals and talk with people involved in the maintenance and operation of the equipment. With the plant capacity study completed, the operation is able to pinpoint which metrics matter the most. Further, it becomes crystal clear which parts of the operations are bottlenecks, like a kink in the hose when you're filling up your backyard swimming pool. The plant capacity study that we help with is the final key here to unlocking the power in this fourth industrial revolution. Now, with people at the center and bottlenecks confirmed, we can unlock the power because we can define asset criticality. We can determine plant and individuals' capacity, and we know which things we need to measure. So then we hone in on the right sensors to measure the right things. We can quantify the impact that each player has in the system, which provides a sense of clarity and purpose. Further, that leads to effective collaboration, which improves knowledge transfer, cost reduction, increased production, and goals achieved together across functions. So let me share with you an example where this came into play. One particular mining company in Missouri wanted to increase availability of their equipment and reduce their cost and cost per ton. So OEE is overall equipment effectiveness. They were willing to meet with our team to discuss this because they saw in us the ability for us to help them definitively quantify their business improvements over time, year over year. A lot of operations asked us to engage simply because they saw that understanding Industry 4.0 could help them increase profits for their company in a significant and lasting way. And when done in the right way, as we've uncovered for you here, this technology has a deep ability to transform the culture and grow the company. This particular company was advanced. They were early adopters of vibration sensors. They attached a 4G signal. The comment was, we've got too much data. Not that it was too big for their files or for a server, but it's that the data wasn't helping them. It was there, but there was no reference point on plant capacity or the failure mode, so they were simply unable to use the data to make informed decisions. We dug a little deeper. We said, how well do you collaborate? If you're in procurement, how well do you collaborate with your colleagues in operations? Oh, we actually collaborate really well. Okay, so to corroborate the story, we went and talked to operations. How well do you work with procurement? Oh, we work great. Sounds really positive here. We wanted to make sure we weren't missing anything. So we went back to procurement and we said, and we went to each organization, each division, and we said, could you help us understand what the goals and ambitions are of the operations team this year? That was more difficult. So while they were able to work together, it was unclear to them what their colleagues' goals and ambitions were. And so we asked, are you clear on a way that you can achieve your goals and the goals of your colleagues? And simply because they had collaborated but not deep enough, it was a question mark. They needed to be aware of and sensitive to each other's goals. We asked them, when do you experience setbacks? And they said, when our best resources leave or retire. Why is that a challenge? sometimes in mining operations, they're remote sites. It's maybe hard to attract or keep employees for a number of reasons. Just in general, all industries are facing this challenge. And it is a challenge. And we really wanted to understand, find out ways that we could help them mitigate that setback. We asked them, have you assessed in a formal way the criticality of each asset? And they actually had a really strong program, a definitive way to define asset criticality. And then we said, do you understand right now with certainty where your bottlenecks are? That one was a little bit more difficult. So they had made great progress in understanding asset criticality, but the bottlenecks weren't necessarily clear. And the real question was, can you understand at any point in time where the bottlenecks are? And that was unknown. We asked, is it possible for you to determine the best use of your resources, time, money, people, space, at any point in time to achieve your division's goals? And what about the goals of the other division and therefore the company? They came back with this question back to us. How can we advance? They didn't know what they didn't know. And so we can't achieve these goals just by adding more people. And we can't really achieve these goals just by adding new technology and new data. So this is the goal. This is the key of the presentation. These are the two things I mentioned that we would share with you at the end. So in summary, you can achieve these goals with a MobilServ approach to Industry 4.0. When you do that, you'll know how to use technology to magnify that human-centered approach. So first, as you create a culture of contribution, 100% of the employees know and feel how much their work contributes to the bottom line. And then second, as you create a baseline for your data through a client capacity assessment with your MobilServ field engineers, you'll be able to better understand and better transfer knowledge among employees, and you will be keen on knowing how and where to reduce costs, how and where to increase output, and keen on the goals of your colleagues in different functions and for the company. The real measure of success is that procurement, human resources, maintenance, and operations will all be able to see and agree on the best use of resources at any point in time. This is what's possible with the MobilServ approach to Industry 4.0. So with that, it's really important to us that you're able to take our journey and use it to transform your company into the future. We invite you to visit mobil.com/plant study to learn more. We're helping companies across North America to unlock the power of Industry 4.0, and we invite you to join us today.
Interesting stuff, Adam. Oh boy, all this talk and all these graphics about swimming pools seem very nice. It is hot in Chicagoland on this first day of summer.
Wouldn't that be refreshing, right?
We do have a little backyard pool too, and our host gets kicked in it as well, so I understand what you're saying there. We got a question here for you. What would be the most challenging thing about what you're recommending here? What's the most difficult part of what we just talked about?
The most difficult part about what we're recommending. So if I could put up a meme, I would put up a picture of a quarter, and I would say, change is hard. Have you ever tried to bend a quarter? Mostly because it's, obligatory as a father to drop a dad joke, right? But really, the most difficult challenge is changing a culture. So how do we get an operator to grease his equipment before if they just don't care?
Mm-hmm.
Equipment is easy, but changing people is more difficult. And changing people against their will, as the saying goes, they're of the same opinion still. So you can't unlock the power of this across the organization just with more data. You actually need to change paradigms. You have to change expectations, and you really need to change the culture because they've been cultured to behave in a certain way. So if somebody shows up and says, hey, we've partnered with a big data company to get you more data, you know it's going to fall short. That's hoarding data. That's what we talked about with the hand sanitizer in the swimming pool. It won't change set behaviors. I mean, think of in your own organization, think of those annoying mindsets at work. Can you think of any of those? I mean, like everyone else, of course, right? It's kind of like that joke where the woman phones her husband and says, "Watson, watch out, there's a man driving on the wrong side of the highway." And he says, "One, there's hundreds of them." I mean, it's always easy to see everyone else has the behavior problem that needs to be changed, right? But I'm talking, how do you allow and include everybody in that change? And you create a culture of quantifying employee contribution. So you need the site assessments, the plant capacity to be able to understand what data to capture so you're not overloaded by irrelevant data. I mean, the end game is to focus on a human-led approach, just like we've described here.
Yeah. Here's another question. This comes from Merrill, who asks, how do we shift the focus from short-term to long-term with these approaches?
So if you set it up correctly, when you have the right insights and you've built this correctly based on human contribution, you can actually be able to make that weighted decision. That's what we're talking about when we said at any point in time, what's the best use of resources? Because then you could actually look at, hey, if I actually spend a little bit more money on the maintenance of this equipment, then I can see this is probably what it's going to do, or this is definitively what it's going to do short term, and here's the impact long term. Right? Like here's a great example. So one of the mining companies that we talked to had actually reduced the maximum speed of their haul trucks. Now, if you are familiar with operating equipment, there's a bonus when you produce more. When they slowed down the maximum speed from, let's say, 25 miles an hour down to 23, it was frustrating. Everyone was frustrated with that. It actually allowed them to produce more. It actually cost less per ton to do that, and they did it again. They lowered that down to 18 miles an hour. This time, they didn't let the operators know. And so they were able to like visually see and track what impact that was having. What they could have done a little bit further is actually track who was driving that, help them understand when you drive 18 miles an hour, this is what you just produced for the company. And now your incentives can be different. It's not about production, it's about production per hour, or it's about overall company profits, right? Because you can drive those things faster and get one more load in. Instead of 25 loads, you got 26. Now you get your bonus, but all of a sudden maintenance costs go up incredibly because you've got to replace tires and the frames. And so you can actually quantify when you do this thing or don't do this thing, here's the impact that has on the bottom line. And that's why we're saying bring in human resources, because you can see what impact each person is having. And now you're looking for growth opportunities. Now you're looking for training opportunities where they're falling short. And that's how you change that culture. And then with all of that, you'll be able to say, here's the short-term gain, here's the long-term gain of that. Which one would you like to do? And it's not until that point you can make that decision.
I always love those stories where different departments contribute to digital transformation. You know, you've got human resources, and you've got the data scientists, and you've got the operators and the C-suite and the people on the plant floor and all that. And again, it highlights the fact that it is all these approaches are people-centric, you know.
Well, and you think about inventory, right? So maintenance has a lot of work. They need to order parts and equipment to be able to do that maintenance, but they're not really thinking about procurement, right? So once they start to collaborate, they can say, hey, this is what would help me. What could I do that would still accomplish my goal, but would help you as well? And so they're not connected. They collaborate, but they're not connected enough.
Right. Excellent. Question for Adam here. Someone poses, is puzzled by the fact that why is an oil supplier, why is Exxon touting its solutions in the digital transformation space? Can you address that?
Sure. It's interesting because we actually have a lot of our own mining operations and refining operations and numerous operations. And it was really kind of this rogue group that went out to try to uncover independently what we needed to do to harness that potential. So I would attribute it more to our ability to innovate and connect and understand and listen. And we just happen to be under the umbrella of ExxonMobil. But if you think about some of the technologies that have come out from our research and development that are impacting the community and the manufacturing world right now, they're significant. And looking at a number of technologies that allow a lot of insight at point of use that we may not have been able to do before. And so that's what actually spurred us to how do we use these technologies all together?
Okay, excellent. That explains it. Gentlemen, we're almost out of time. I'd like to thank our Basecamp Digital sponsors, again, Inductive Automation, our platinum sponsor, Everactive, Pulse, Litmus, Nikola Labs, and Opto22, who shared Benson with us today. We appreciate that. The link right there in yellow is where you can access video interviews with experts from our sponsors. Very interesting stuff, very topical. I want to thank the audience for joining us today. Very lively discussion, a lot of stuff to digest, very interesting stuff. I want to thank Adam and Jason and Benson for joining us. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you, Chris.
And as always, we remind the audience to go out and make it a smart day.